Hello class, and welcome to video 1 of our chapter 16 video lecture series on reasoning. Today we're going to go over the two different types of reasoning, deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. Let's start by looking at the text definition of deductive reasoning. According to the text, deductive reasoning is using specific premises in order to reach an unavoidable and certain conclusion. This is important to note because if the premises that you provide are factual and correct, then the conclusion that you come to will be both unavoidable and certain. Deductive reasoning relies on a syllogism, which is a formal structure that lays out claims to build upon each other in order to reach a conclusion. I know this may sound somewhat confusing, but the way that I like to think of it is as an inverted pyramid. In this model, the top piece of your pyramid would be your major premise. A major premise is a statement of general truth or fact. So in other words, something that is widely and correctly known. The second piece of your pyramid would be your minor premise, which is a specific instance of the general truth or fact in action. In other words, this is something or some idea that directly relates to your major premise. The final piece of the pyramid would be your conclusion, which is the logical result of both your major and minor premises. It is important to note that premises must contain verifiable factual information in order for your conclusion to be certain and unavoidable. If your premises do not contain verifiable factual information, then you may have conducted faulty reasoning. Now that we've defined syllogisms and discussed the three different components that make up a complete syllogism, let's take a look at the three different types of syllogisms that exist. The first type of syllogism we'll look at is the categorical syllogism, which is reasoning based on categories. Let's look at an example of this below. In this example, our major premise is that man is mortal. So this is a widely known and accepted fact that people do not live forever. Our minor premise says that Socrates is a man. Therefore, he is a specific example of man which is found in the major premise. This leads us to the certain and unavoidable conclusion that Socrates is mortal. Because Socrates is a man, as seen in the major premise, man is mortal, that leads us to the conclusion that Socrates, a man, is also mortal. And this would be an example of a categorical syllogism. The second type of syllogism we'll look at is disjunctive syllogism, which is reasoning based on an either-or scenario. Let's go ahead and look at an example below. So in this example, our major premise is that I'm going to get a pet, and I've decided I'm either going to get a dog or a cat. So the major premise has two options, dog or cat. In the minor premise, I just found out that my roommate is allergic to cats, so I will not be getting a cat. This leads to the conclusion, which says that I will be getting a dog. Because I only had two options in the major premise, and in the minor premise I got rid of the option of a cat, this left us with the option of a dog, which is the uncertain and unavoidable conclusion of our major premise, dog or cat, in combination with our minor premise, no cat. It is important to note that disjunctive syllogisms only work if your major premise is a true either-or situation. The third and final type of syllogism we'll discuss is conditional syllogism. A conditional syllogism is reasoning based on if-then scenarios. In the following example, I'm trying to decide how I will commute back and forth to campus next semester. In my major premise, I have decided that if I get the Metro Pass, then I will save money. Campus parking and gas and insurance is actually more expensive for me than getting the Metro Pass and taking the bus. So this leads to the major premise that if I get the Metro Pass, then I will save money. My minor premise says that yes, I will get the Metro Pass, which leads to the conclusion that yes, I will save money. So this type of syllogism, the conditional syllogism, is often used for hypothetical examples. Those are the three types of syllogisms listed in your book. If you have any questions, please feel free to write on the discussion board. The second type of reasoning is inductive reasoning. The text defines inductive reasoning as reasoning that uses pieces of evidence to construct probable conclusions. It's important to highlight the word probable here because unlike deductive reasoning, the conclusions that you gain through inductive reasoning are not certain and unavoidable, no matter how good your data is. Let's go ahead and take a look at this on the next slide. Inductive reasoning is based on probabilities rather than the absolutes you would see in properly constructed syllogisms. Instead, inductive reasoning makes assumptions based on known data. What this means is that information is gathered and probabilities are found for how that information might play out in the real world. Let's look at an example below. So let's say that our campus newspaper was doing a poll on students' political affiliations. They found that 30% of students self-identified as being Republican. Okay, so you're currently in a course with 30 students. This information may lead you to believe that you can just do the math. 30 times 30% equals 9. So 9 students in your class must self-identify as being Republican. However, you must remember that when using inductive reasoning, you are only coming to a probable conclusion rather than the absolute conclusion you can come up with using deductive reasoning. What this means is that there could be any number between 0 and 30 self-reported Republicans in your classroom. Okay, so that's it for the different types of reasoning. Let's go ahead and wrap up. In this video, we discussed deductive reasoning and the different types of syllogisms, which were categorical, disjunctive, and conditional. We then discussed inductive reasoning and what it was, as well as how it differed from deductive reasoning. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you soon for video 2 of Chapter 16, where we'll talk about the different forms of reasoning.